INEC's error with regards to duplication of my name. So I am suing INEC for damages because they are costing me money. I'm engaging in legal suits that I should ordinarily not be part of. Everybody is taking advantage now to try to sue me for something that I am not even aware of. That was no fault of mine. So that is why I believe INEC too should take responsibility and NNPP should take responsibility. So I'm suing them each for 100 million naira for damages for defamation and malicious intent.
William F. Weld, an American attorney, businessman, author, and politician, once said, "If a party stands for nothing but re-election, it indeed stands for nothing." All right, our next quote is from Abhijit Naskar, one of the world's famous neuroscientists and an unretiring advocate of global harmony and peace. He once said, "Religion was the opium for the masses of yesterday. Politics is the opium for the masses of today." All right, let's see how all of this correlates with what or who we will be discussing today. Very warm greetings and welcome to The Conversation. We are reaching you from Kaftan's television studio here in the nation's capital, Abuja. I am Annabelle Oji. My guest on the show today is Honorable Mark Gbillah, a Nigerian politician at the House of Representatives. Honorable Mark Gbillah currently serves as the federal representative representing Gwer East and Gwer West Federal Constituency in the 9th National Assembly. He's also the deputy chairman, House Committee on Petroleum Resources as Upstream. Honorable Mark Gbillah says that INEC published his name on both the Labour Party and NNPP without his consent and has insisted that he is running for Benue Northwest Senatorial District election on the platform of the Labour Party. So we will be talking to him after this time out. Do join us again. Welcome back. If you just joined us, this is The Conversation. We're reaching you from Kaftan's television here in the nation's capital, Abuja. Now, if you just joined us, you're right on time for the interview. Our guest on the show today is Honorable Mark Gbillah. He is the member House of Representatives representing Gwer West and Gwer East and Benue State. Glad to have you on the show, sir.
Thank you very much. And it's Gwer East, Gwer West Federal Constituency of Benue State.
Okay, so sorry about that. All right, now, would like you to kindly clear the air with regards to the INEC's publication on September 20th, 2022 on the list of the national, with the presidential, Senate and House of Representative candidate for 2023 general elections, indicating your name as the candidate for both the Labour Party and the NNPP and for Benue Northwest Senatorial District elections. And then that's one on the side. I'm going to ask you two questions and I'd like you to unbundle them in one breath. Now, that's one on the side. And then secondly, there's this report saying that you were disqualified from that race. So we'd like you to clear the air in that regard.
Okay, so thank you very much. Let me start by trying to lay a foundation. Obviously, in our country, Nigeria, there's no independent candidacy. So someone has to belong to a political party before you can run for an election, before you can enjoy the mandate of the people to serve them. So I was in the PDP initially. Some of us sacrificed our status in the House to support and stand with the party. I lost out in this current 9th Assembly. I was not given the chairmanship or deputy position because I'm one of those who stood assiduously, in support of the party's position regarding the leadership of the House. But when it finally came to the point where the party should have shown that same level of regard and appreciation, unfortunately, the forces that be in the party, in the state, prevented me from emerging. As much as they like to claim what is not true, my people are 100% behind me. But we even compounded the issues in the House by not having that provision in the Act properly. So only a few people were involved in the primaries, if you remember. So that affected me, of course, with the influence, external influences in the state. So then I now decided that I would leave the PDP and was approached in the NNPP at the time to join the party. So I joined the party and actually even emerged as a senatorial candidate. But when we now got to the point of the gubernatorial primaries, I now had irreconcilable differences with the party because their choice of the candidate for the party was not the popular position of the people of Benue State. So obviously I am within my rights, as is even allowed in the Electoral Act, to withdraw my candidacy. So I resigned my membership on the 5th of July and withdrew my candidacy. So I have those documents which I can provide for you for the viewers to also view, in the course of the reporting. So I now joined the Labour Party and participated in their own senatorial district primaries for that same constituency and emerged as a candidate. So for INEC to have published my name for both the Labour Party and the NNPP was erroneous. It was completely unexpected without my knowledge, and it did not show professionalism on the part of INEC and diligence on their part for an institution that will be superintending such a monumental election in the history of this country. I would expect a lot more efficiency on their part. And then the NNPP, of course, I want to make sure that they're not being used for a premeditated attempt to try to disqualify me from the position. But fortunately, all the facts are there, and I have taken INEC and the NNPP to court to have that decision reversed, to have my name expunged, because the documents are there. The affidavit that I even swore with regards to my withdrawal is there. So everything was done according to the provisions of the Act. Now, taking advantage of what transpired, you see, unfortunately, this is what the peace accord is trying to avoid. This is what even the Electoral Act has made provisions for now. The issue of false statements, fake news, trying to malign and disparage opponents. A news item was now published on a certain media called FirstTVNigeria.com, now said I was disqualified by INEC and that INEC sent a letter to me saying I was ineligible to contest because I submitted my name to two different parties. For those who are informed, the context of that publication should even let them know that it was fake news. First and foremost, INEC cannot disqualify a candidate except it is expressly provided for in the Constitution or the Electoral Act, or except by the order of a court of competent jurisdiction. INEC cannot disqualify a candidate. But you see, for my teaming supporters and those who are not informed, it became a concern. And that is where I also had an issue with it, because it was a targeted attempt to discredit me, to cause disaffection amongst my supporters, and to distract me. And my private investigations have revealed that that First TV is owned by a company called First Dotai Nigeria Limited. I have their RC number. The founder and CEO is the senior special assistant to the governor of Benue State, Governor Samuel Otom. So I had issues with that because I wonder whether a senior special assistant would embark on such a journey of falsehood and fake news without the knowledge of his principal. And as we speak, as much as the governor's press secretary responded to my press statement in that regard, all they did in their response was invectives and abuse on me about how I am insignificant, how thousands of me are not any concern to the governor, without addressing the fact you should have disowned, the governor should have disowned the article to say if something like that was published. And even in that statement, he said alleged senior special assistant when the facts are there. So you see, that now is why I have had to, even in this regard, I have reported this issue to the Inspector General, to the National Security Advisor, and the Director DSS, and the Chairman INEC. So they'll be aware that there is a planned campaign of calumny against me, to disparage me, to discredit me, and to try by all means to get me out of the ballot. And unfortunately, INEC has given them a leeway with this error that they made. As we speak, PDP has also instituted legal action in the state because that is their stock in trade in Benue. They are instituting action against every political party to try to get them off the ballot. It makes one wonder, are they afraid to go into a free and fair race? Do they think they can't win? So, but these are the issues that have transpired. So there was the fake news publication, which was premised on INEC's error with regards to duplication of my name. So I am suing INEC for damages because they are costing me money. I'm engaging in legal suits that I should ordinarily not be part of. Everybody is taking advantage now to try to sue me for something that I am not even aware of. That was no fault of mine. So that is why I believe INEC too should take responsibility and NNPP should take responsibility. So I'm suing them each for 100 million naira for damages, for defamation and malicious intent.
Now, one would actually wonder what exactly could be the reason why. I don't know. We saw a particular press conference where you stated that it could be Governor Othom that is responsible for this if he refused to respond to it, to his SA's comments. Now, what exactly could be the reason why he could be responsible for such acts? That's one on the side. And then secondly, you should think that INEC should know better. Why exactly would this kind of issue crop up, even from the electoral umpire?
Yeah, so let me start with the electoral umpire. Let me start answering that last question first. Now, that's what I said. You see, unfortunately, as a country, the functioning of our institutions is not as efficient and professional as it should be. One school of thought, which is also likely what happened, is of the opinion that the NNPP did not upload. In fact, I can tell you on good authority that is what reliable sources from within the NNPP are telling me, that they could not meet up with INEC's deadline to upload the names of their candidate, which is the highest level of irresponsibility, because they should have known the consequences of their actions for doing that. And INEC shouldn't have taken any party's candidates without knowing that they had met that timeline. This is the inefficiency that I'm saying. So now, an INEC now, for instance, has their own report of the rescheduled primaries of the NNPP to replace me. Is it not amazing that INEC has a report like that with the name of a certain Akko Aondove Francis as my replacement for that position? And yet nobody in INEC was efficient enough to have said, no, we already have this report, let's reach out to NNPP. What happened? Why is this name still here? This is what our EOs in that zone went to witness. They were part of it, and this is what they reported. What is the problem? I hear now, it is now that NNPP is trying to rectify the issue with INEC, but the damage has been done. They have defamed me as far as I'm concerned. They have caused me unnecessary damage and psychological trauma for no reason of mine. So that is part of the reason why that could have occurred. The simple inefficiency that occurs in the institutions of governance, and it's disappointing that INEC, that we expect so much from, is also falling prey to that, because they should have identified this from the very beginning. But it's as if for them it's just garbage in, garbage out. Whatever was there, they just print it out without doing any due diligence. That is unfortunate and disappointing. Then from the first instance, I did not say Governor Tom was behind it. Let me clarify. I said that it is not out of place for me to wonder if it is not with his knowledge that they are confident enough to be able to be publishing such fake news as appointees and aides of his. And it is compounded by the fact that he has not come out to say, I did not tell this person to go and publish that. In fact, like I mentioned earlier, the statement is even trying to say, I alleged that the owner of that thing, when the facts are there, I have the facts from the CAC. His SSA, the governor's SSA, is the owner of that media that released that fake news against me. But one of the issues why his cronies and aides, and probably he himself, that have issues with my candidacy is the fact that in Benue, as we speak, there is what we call Ya Nawangban, which in our local parlance means eat and give your brother. So it's sort of a plan for equity, just like in the national level we have federal character, or what we also refer to as zoning. So now my local government, the Choshin in Gwer West local government, are the only ones who have not produced a senator of Zone B. And the entire Benue, the entire Tivland knows that. But the governor's supporters and cronies want to narrow it down to what they call provinces and not established zones of Tivland, instead of the fact of looking at those established by law, local governments where people come from, which is what everybody recognizes. So it's not in doubt. The last, our previous governor, even when he was going to run the last time, came to us to ask for what we call a loan to allow him take our slot. That is His Excellency Senator George Akume, before Okejev, whose local government who had not produced Buruku, is now the senator. So the only local government that has not produced is Gwer West. Everybody knows that. So I'm in pole position to run for the race, because even in Gwer West, there's what they call the eldest son. And I come from the eldest son, who, when something comes to his place for the first time, is one that has the first right of refusal. Okay. So in every facet of that particular race, in terms of our local zoning and our equitable distribution, it favors me as the preferred one. So it is not to the advantage of the governor. That is something.
So is that the reason why you could have this? You have this plot around.
Yes, it is possible, and that is one part. And then, secondly, of course, because I personally believe that I am more competent to be in that position. I have more legislative experience. He has none. I have the capacity to pursue and ensure the issues of my people are driven, and I have shown a level of commitment to the development of my people and the issues that concern them. So with regards to what even I consider to be the most important one, which is what I'm talking about now, the ability of competence and performance, I believe that I am more fitted to be in that position. So that too is also probably an issue, the fact that it appears that I might be a popular candidate, because the people of Benue have seen my performance in the National Assembly over the years, and they know what it is that I can bring to the table on their behalf. And also, it is a paradigm shift. The Benue people, the Nigerian people, want a new direction. We want a new Benue, we want a new Nigeria, we want a new crop of leaders to emerge. We can't keep recycling people. They have had their chance. They should allow some of us to be able to lead our people and contribute to the development of our people. At my age, we had governors who had done 2 terms already, but I'm still contesting now with the governor again to go to the Senate, when it should have gone without saying that he would have allowed me to go ahead, because he knows that I'm capable of doing the job.
We'll definitely get right to that. But now you have Governor Othom or a particular publication that where we saw that he replied and said that you have no capacity to threaten the electoral victory of the People's Democratic Party in the forthcoming election, and then concluded with, "Let it also be known to all that PDP in Benue is solid and will be victorious in the forthcoming elections. Not 1,000 Gbillas can threaten the PDP." And you stated that initially. Yes. Now, I would have actually wondered, the same party where you were a card-carrying member since 2015, when you left APC down to PDP, what exactly went wrong? Why did the soup that was sweet all of a sudden turn sour? Is there something that we should know?
Well, I referred to it earlier, you know, and that is the fact that at the point at which I was going to run for the primaries to return to the House. Now, there were extraneous influences within the state that, for some reason, felt uncomfortable with my returning to the House. And then there was our own local issue of considerations where the current secretary to the party, who happened to be from my constituency, and others like him from one of the other local governments where I belong, took it upon themselves to vociferously want to prevent me from returning. But that wouldn't have mattered if there wasn't another influence from above within the state to affect my emergence because of probable concerns about future aspirations of mine. These are things in local politics that you cannot discountenance. Now, I said
What could
earlier,
that future aspiration be?
well, this same thing about running for the governor,
Okay.
so or the Senate, who knows? Because in future, the governorship too is going to be coming to my area because we have not produced the governor. The Gwe people in Benue have not produced a governor, and it is well within my rights to still run for governor. If it is God's will, nobody can stop it. And that is what some of us always try to espouse, the fact that all power belongs to God, just like the governor himself says. So it is not within anybody's power to try to truncate anybody's ambition. Just like there was an attempt to truncate mine now, and God has opened another route for me to now aspire to something else as well. So the origin of it was from that primary where there seemed to have been a grand plot against me, and I felt unhappy about the fact that after all the sacrifice I also made for the party, you know, I did not expect that the party will hang me out to dry. Some of my colleagues were all amazed. One of them even told me again today that he was shocked that after the sacrifice, because they know how it is in the House, I lost out personally, completely, because I chose to stand with the party. Some of my other colleagues who were also members of the party who compromised were compensated, with chairmanship positions and other considerations and involvement in certain functioning of the House. But I am, as I speak, an ordinary floor member. But I don't mind because I felt I was standing on the path of justice and integrity. But my party seemed not to appreciate that. And I didn't see any reason why I should still remain in the party who did not appreciate my contribution and sacrifice. And because of the fact that I had the conviction to now pursue this Senate position, which, like I told you, rightfully belongs or rightfully is something that we have not enjoyed. Let me not say belongs. It's not like a right, but it's something that everybody appreciates that we haven't had the opportunity. And equity demands that we should be given that opportunity. And this is that time. So I decided, after getting the conviction, that I should go ahead. And then that's where my journey to find the right platform upon which to run began, where I have now ended up in the Labour Party as their candidate.
Now, aside litigation, what other options of for reconciliation are there or open? Because I understand that this must really be draining. So, what other options do you have? Probably more diplomatic means of settling the scores.
No, unfortunately, in this particular instance, because of the timelines involved, litigation is probably the best option. When this thing occurred, I met with the INEC chairman. He advised that I get formal communication from the NNPP about my withdrawal that they sent to them, you know, because I also thought they would already be in possession of it. But that is part of the inefficiency that I'm talking about. I reached out to NNPP. There was no response, obviously, for someone who has left your party. You can see that there might be bad blood. I'm not saying that there is, but hey, this is human beings we're talking about here. But I reached out there too. It was not forthcoming. And then the legal statutes provide that you have 14 days within the occurrence of the event to file your suit. Otherwise, you'll be out of time. So I had no option but to file a suit because, in that regard, like I said, that is what can now compel INEC to do the right thing. So, in the absence of any other diplomatic solution, this was the best way to go because now they will have no option but to now enforce the judgment of the court to expunge my name as a candidate of NNPP and maintain my candidacy for the Labour Party.
All right. All right, we actually due for a break, but before we go on that break, like you stated, your local government from history have never produced a senator. So I'm guessing that that will be like one of your strengths. So aside that, what else should your constituency be looking at, and what are the other things that they should look at when if they have to put their thumb where their mouth is with regards to voting you?
Okay, so first and foremost, let me start from servitude and concerns about the issues that have to do with the people. I have been a member now, and this is my second term in the House of Representatives. There have been issues that have to do with the Fulani herdsmen attacks in my constituency, in my local government in particular, and my people know how much I have stood and intervened and provided succor to them in that regard within the limits of my capacity as a legislator, not as any member of the executive. I have intervened with regards to issues concerning them in education. I have assisted for the first time on record members of the constituency to go abroad for scholarship, something I did not enjoy, but I'm privileged to do that for members of my constituency. In the health sector, I provided intervention with regards to people getting treatment and health insurance as well. In terms of agriculture, I have intervened in that area with regards to innovative means because I want them to stop subsistence farming. We're in the course of setting up the first greenhouses in the constituency any moment from now. In terms of economic development and industrialization, I am the one who has initiated the construction of the first industries in the constituency. In terms of infrastructure, road infrastructure, the Makudi Naka Adoka Angpa Road, which even the governor himself is aware, I, in my first term in the House, drove the process to award, and they're currently constructing that road. It traverses 4 federal constituencies in this country. The road was ignored. Previous members, senators who have that road traverse their own constituencies, nobody pursued that until I came in my first tenure. Right now, we're constructing the first tarred road in my local government and probably within the local government, any local government in my constituency. So I'm trying to say that even with regards to intervention in their lives, I have shown that within that limit, now I have done all of this not as a leader in the House, not as a chairman, but as an ordinary member of the House. Now, that, in my opinion, shows if given greater responsibility, I will be able to rise up to the issues that concern them and drive the issues that concern them to a logical conclusion and be able to defend issues that concern them.
All right. Let's go on a quick break, and when we return, we'll continue this conversation with Honorable Mark Gbillah. See you shortly. How many of these bills have you actually sponsored, and how many of them went through?
Okay, so let me make it very clear, because one of the things that the misconceptions that we have with regards to bills is the fact that we do not realize a lot of what you see being sponsored is political. There are establishment bills that never see the light of day, one or two in a term of the House, because it wants to appeal to the people back in the constituency that you are doing something with regards to establishing an institution in the school. It's important for me to let you know some of these things. Otherwise, you have the misconception that people are sponsoring bills, others are not. And then, of course, there are other issues that have to do genuinely with legislation that you can get involved in and that is more productive in terms of the circumstances that concern the people.
If you just joined us, this is The Conversation. We are reaching you from Kaftan Television here in the nation's capital, Abuja. If you just joined us, you're actually missed out on a lot of things that we've talked about, but then you can still join in the conversation. Our guest on the show today is Honorable Mark Gbillah. All right, and before we went on that short break, we've actually talked about quite a lot of things. But now, seeing the fact that you would be contesting with some power blocks in your state, in Benue State, I mean, the big names and the big parties, then you're coming under the Labour Party. So, and I'm trying to think how much does Labour Party have? What's the chance for Labour Party to take over the government in 2023?
Okay, Labour Party, like you can see even on the national level, is making tremendous inroads in the political sphere in our country. And in Benue State in particular, Labour is, without a doubt, the alternative that the people have. Now, it is always important to note that the people have experienced the PDP, have experienced the APC, which they are still experiencing, and they have seen that the same dramatic personnel, the same individuals, are the same people who are being recycled and who have been brought to the fore again to get involved in the affairs that concern them. And others who have not are being pushed and sponsored in other parties by people who have. The Labour Party is the only party that has no godfathers driving the candidates. The Labour Party is the only party that has people who have been seen to be performers. Our gubernatorial candidate is a four-time member of the House of Reps. It is on record the development that has taken place in his constituency in the period of his being in the House, some of which were the first that ever happened only when he became a member. Now we're bringing that level of commitment to development. We're bringing that level of a paradigm shift. We are a different generation of politicians that are coming to the fore in the Labour Party in the state. And that is the appeal to the Benue people. They want a change. They want to see a new crop of politicians who have shown capacity, who have shown performance, who have shown an interest in the development of the state, and who they can see that can be good examples for the development of the state. So, as a party, I can assure you that we're making tremendous inroads. We still have campaigns to do nonetheless, of course, but I can assure you that the acceptability of Labour in Benue is beyond what people have even imagined, and we will give the major parties a run for their money.
All right, now, so kindly walk us through the bills that you sponsored as the member of the House of Representatives. That's one on the side. And then, secondly, you are contesting to become the senator representing Benue B constituency. So, what are your plans, your policies, and your programs? Because you have a lot of Nigerians, there's this eagerness. People want to know who becomes the next president, but nobody is asking the questions with regards to who represents you, what kind of bills they're going to sponsor. So, what plans and policies do you have in place, and then which of them have you done? How many of these bills have you actually sponsored, and how many of them went through?
Okay, so let me make it very clear, because one of the things that the misconceptions that we have with regards to bills is the fact that we do not realize a lot of what you see being sponsored is political. They are establishment bills that never see the light of day, one or two in a term of a house, because it wants to appeal to the people back in the constituency that you are doing something in regards to establishing an institution in the school. It's important for me to let you know some of these things. Otherwise, you'll have the misconception that people are sponsoring bills, others are not. And then, of course, there are other issues that have to do genuinely with legislation that you can get involved in and that is more productive in terms of the circumstances that concern the people. So I wanted to lay that foundation, so that people will understand how things transpire in the legislature. Then there are other bills too that you get involved in that is not written in your name, but you are also a co-sponsor. You are also involved in its formulation and its eventual enactment or passage on the floor. Okay, so in that regard, let me start from the bills that I have sponsored that are still at the stage within the National Assembly, within the processes. Now, one of them had to do with the Fiscal Responsibility Act. Another one had to do with the Revenue Mobilization Allocation of Fiscal Commission, the amendment of certain provisions in it with regards to the quorum and other functionality of that, because there's something I'm very keen about, and probably tomorrow I should be taking the motion in that regard, and that is proper revenue allocation. And that is something that has to do primarily with the Revenue Mobilization Allocation of Fiscal Commission, because I'm passionate about true federalism, and I believe that the revenue allocation has not been equitable to in favor of the federating units. So that is why I sponsored that as well. But like I said, and this is something that the people need to know, the processes in the House have to do so much with whether or not the executive is willing to pass, to assent. That's the word. I'm sure you're aware there are thousands of bills at the villa that have not been attended to. So those are two. I'm in the course now of presenting one that's going to try to address the building collapse. The Council of Registered Builders and I have finished work on the bill. So I am going to be presenting that too very soon, and a couple of them. And let me also say that the the cooperation of the executive with regards to the bills from the House usually is focused on what they consider to be their priorities. And that is why you see that there's no turnover. The Eighth Assembly achieved a lot. The NDDC bill, is one to look at, the fiscal, the finance bill recently, the PIA, so these are all bills that we were involved in. So it's not written Gbillah sponsored this bill, but these are bills we're all involved in as well in the process of their enactment. But these are things you will not see from the outside. Uh-huh. So just to give you a summary of it, so I have never bothered with establishment bills because I feel I'm not trying to play to the gallery, and try to say, except if there's a fundamental issue and need for it that I think is important. But for right now, I don't think there's a justification for me to look for the establishment of an institution in my local government just for the sake of saying to have sponsored a bill in that regard.
Okay, so now are there policies or programs that you railed out before you became the House of Representative member representing your constituency that you regret you have not been able to achieve and might not be able to achieve because of time or the opportunity to?
Yeah, there are a couple of things that I had thought that and unfortunately, a lot of these things don't depend on you as an individual. That's the challenge of being a legislator. I have been involved in the process. Some have come to fruition, some have not. One of those has come to fruition is the PIA, because I was in the Eighth Assembly. Like I said, I was not a chairman, but I was deputy chairman of Petroleum Resources Upstream. So I already had that passion to ensure that we had that law enacted as soon as possible in the interest of the country. And I'm happy that that process has come to fruition. The Electoral Act is something that I was also involved in from the Eighth Assembly. And fortunately, it has been enacted. Now, one of the other things that I would have loved, but has to do with a constitutional amendment, is independent candidacy. Now, that's one of the things that I have been championing because that to me is a revolution Nigeria has not gotten to yet. The ability for a Nigerian to discountenance political parties, godfathers, and all those influences and stand before the people. That is the breakthrough we need. And that is what a lot of this political class is afraid of.
Do you ever see us getting to that level?
Yes, we will. We will. As more and more of people of my ilk start to get involved in politics, because some of us were never in politics before. I never ran for election once before I won my first election. I was never in any political party before I joined that year. It was just a conviction from God. Those of you who serve God in spirit and in truth, you have to put your hands to the plow. You can't let the country be the way it is and stay outside and be complaining. Righteousness exalts a nation. So it is the righteous that should get involved to exalt the nation and bring the change. So that's one of the key things. And another thing that I'm still trying to see how to drive, which is not getting the kind of traction that I want, is the ability for Nigerians to start to put their money where their mouth is. Funding of candidates. We need to get a breakthrough in this country. That is what encourages corruption. There's a lot of money involved in politics. Everybody knows that across the world. Even the countries that espouse, who even call themselves the epitome of democracy, you can see the hundreds and billions of dollars that are expended. But the secret, the people themselves get involved in raising that money. So that person becomes what? Accountable to the people. And that's what we're not having. And that's another thing that I'm keen on trying to get us as a country to have formal legislation about, you know.
All right, now, so let's talk about the Not Too Young to Run Act. What are your thoughts on that? Because aside the paperwork and then the lip service that a lot of people pay to that act. What are your thoughts with regards to that act? Is it really you the clock, like they say?
Well, it was a very, novel and, you know, important bill to pass. It is very, how would I put it, timely and necessary. Now, the problem that we have in that regard is part of what I mentioned previously. In politics, the resources required, the young people don't have them. We have not provided an enabling environment. With this electoral act, to a large extent, we're hoping that it will make a difference, and it will make a difference because there's certain provisions that forestall certain things. For instance, the previous tendency to snatch ballot boxes. Now, that is a failed action because the law says you will repeat it again, except, of course, if from the collation of results, the result from that polling unit won't matter. Otherwise, you will do that again. So, it's not just a fait accompli by passing the act and say, oh, everything is uhuru. What has been put in place? Yes, the youth have now been given a foot in the door, but has the door been opened? That is a challenge. And that is what some of us are agitating for. That is why some of us are still involved in politics, to try to provide that enabling environment where a young person will not know any godfather. That's what the Labour Party stands for. Where a young person will stand up and not have to go and start to pilfer resources, because our younger people these days are learning from our fathers who have failed this country, and they think you have to get money by all means. It is not about money, it's about character, capacity, and patriotism to be able to move our country forward. But these are the values that we need to start to imbibe in the young people early enough. Otherwise, the whole essence of the act will be defeated, because the idea behind the act is to have more virile, more energetic, and more innovative involvement in the running of governance, because a lot of them understand fintech. They understand the millennia. They understand exactly. Are they bringing it to the fore? That is part of what we need to look at, because the older generation is not getting out of the way for them to get involved. You can see that we're having septuagenarians as the candidates in the major parties in Nigeria, not wanting to leave the scene. Some with obvious health challenges, but still insisting on being president of Nigeria. These are concerns that we have.
All right. Now, before we let you go, let's talk about the controversial Water Resources Bill, which actually was rejected in the Seventh and the Eighth Assembly by the lawmakers at the time, but then it made a comeback due to some changes, because I know that you are a vocal opposer of that bill. So, what exactly is in that bill that Nigerians should know? Why is it so controversial, actually?
Okay, so let me say that the controversy started with the previous version of the bill, which required that the states cede certain areas from the shoreline of the littoral states to the federal government for whatever purpose was not determined. Now, you know that there's a Land Use Act that has given the governor the power to superintend over land within the state. So the Water Resources Act in that regard was in direct conflict of that. And of course, considering the circumstances where this administration came up with different types of things called Ruga, The president himself was still talking about grazing routes in the 22nd century. It alarmed everybody to say, no, this seems as if this was a grand plot to allow itinerant kinsmen of the president to begin to take occupation of different parts of the country. That, of course, alarmed everybody, and nobody is comfortable about that because it would have affected even Lagos State, which in large instances is one of the most literal states of all. Then, in this new law, this new proposal, I'll grant my colleague Sada Suli the regard to say that there were previous existing provisions that in the legislature we didn't notice that were already existing in the previous legislation that he now wants to put together in one omnibus bill. And that is where some of us start to have that issue. Again, the sheer magnitude and the lack of attention to the things that were passed before that need to be corrected. Because even with regards to drilling, so the law now says that water that traverses two or more states will now be the sole preserve of the federal government. How do you determine which one traverses? So which one will be the one that will be, is it at the boundary of the state? Do you understand? So that in itself is giving the federal government unnecessary power. Even if it was existing in the previous legislation, then correct it. Don't carry it forward. Now our eyes are open to the fact that, oh, errors were made in that. It says it now gives the government power over above ground and below ground water. That means in your community in Ogbomosho, the federal government will have to give you license to drill a borehole. Now that is unwieldy, that is unnecessary power that can be misused because of the tendency we have as a country to be very biased and to promote nepotism. So you have a wrong government in place, they'll start to restrict production of water in certain parts of the country and allowing other parts of the country to enjoy it because of the ethnicity of whoever is in charge. You now give the minister so much power within the bill, and then there were so many institutions that are planned to be established that will still draw on the meager resources of the federal government that we didn't think was right. So this, in a nutshell, are the issues that we have. The summary is it's giving the federal government undue power. So all those heritage sites, the Oshun River, all of that, by virtue of that bill, will now come under the control of the federal government. So you now start to wonder, what will the states be doing? And in the Constitution, part of the, we have the concurrent list and the exclusive list. Part of the concurrent list allows the state to make laws with regards to agricultural development of the state. And that also involves the use of the water within the state. So it is also in conflict even with the Constitution. So the issues are plenty. We understand that there might have been a good intention, but it needs to be clear enough for Nigerians to see there's no undue power and advantage being given to the federal government to dictate to Nigerians even how to use this free resource of water God has given us.
All right, now let's conclude on taking a cue from where you just landed. What are your thoughts on those people who are calling for restructuring, even though that it actually means different things to different people? For you, should we be talking about restructuring, even if we have to look at it from the security aspect? From your state, we already know that you have this burgeoning state of insecurity with regards to the farmer herders clashes. So now, if you have to talk about restructuring in terms of state policing and all, if you have to talk about restructuring in terms of devolution of powers, do you agree to that call for restructuring?
Yes, 100%. I agree. Every nation needs to understand and accept its peculiarity. Our progenitors, our colonial masters did this country a disservice when they promoted the principle of divide and rule. The colonial masters started the damage, then our own leaders thereafter, instead of trying to correct it, still continue to promote it, to the point where we now came to this so-called federation system without understanding the multiplicity of ethnic groups and ethnic inclinations that we have. That necessarily means that for Nigeria, you need to have a peculiar solution for a Nigeria. And that peculiar solution is that restructuring that gives more power to the federating units. The structure we have now is such that there's so much power at the center that even those who control and man the resources of this country are from one part of the country, because it is the man at the center who determines who goes there. It is unfair to those people there because this resource is being taken from their area. They should be able to determine what happens in that regard. So if we start to now do true devolution of power through restructuring, then every federating unit now contributes to the center. Everybody go back and look at what you are contributing, look at what you are bringing to the table. Don't by political influence and fiat begin to take advantage of the resources of other parts of the country. And that is why, even though we claim to have copied from America, we didn't remember to copy the good part, which is where states are autonomous. They only contribute to the union of America. That is what we should have. And that is what some of us are clamoring for. And of course, I understand the fear about state police, considering, the excesses of our governors, you know, but you cannot throw away the baby with the bathwater. You have to look at the advantages, and then we have to now have checks and balances that have to be provided. And then that can be done from the federal level, where we put a hold and a monitoring arm. Abroad, they have what they call internal affairs that looks into the issues of the police. We need to have that kind of, I'm not talking about EFCC or ICPC, is a different independent body that now polices the police across the country.
Do you actually have your reservations with regards to EFCC and ICPC, the anti-graft agencies?
Yes, I have my reservations because of the fact that they appear to be selective. They seem to be getting politicized. There are certain issues that we know about that never comes to their radar for investigation. Certain individuals that are tied to certain, personalities in government who are said to have humongous amounts of dollars in their accounts. Nobody investigates it. The ICPC is focusing more on National Assembly constituency projects instead of the executive. Let me quickly, if you have time, give you this analogy very quickly to explain the ICPC. Every budget in this country every year, you need to realize, I'll give you the example of this year and last year. In the last 2 years, the entire budget of the National Assembly has been less than 1% of the annual budget of the country. The same with the judiciary. So we have an executive every year that sits on 98% of the resources and the budget of this country. But Nigerians are too ignorant. They seem to think their problem is National Assembly. That's why you see ignorant talk like NNPP. Because in that amount of money I just mentioned, the running of the National Assembly, the salaries, the aids, the committee work, the civil service, we have civil servants here, the National Institute of Legislative Studies, it's all within that amount of money. It's not just shared. I see people do analysis, it's just shared between senators. And I come and I wonder, does the president share that 98% between him and the ministers? No, they go to different functions. So now let me give this analogy. So if in the next 10 years, You do not pay any money to the National Assembly. It will not be up to 10% of just this year's budget alone. That is to show you the problem of Nigeria is not the National Assembly. But that is where Nigerians focus. That is where the executive makes us focus because they don't want us to put a searchlight on them. And unfortunately, ICPC seems to be falling into that. They are focusing on less than 1% of the issue of this country. That is why I say I have issues with that.
All right. Thank you so much for your time with us, Honorable Mark Gbillah. It's been a wonderful time having this talk with you.
Thank you. The pleasure is all mine.
And we do wish you all the best.
Thank you very much.
All right, viewers, that's where we end this show. Thank you so much for tuning in. We have been chatting with Honorable Mark Gbillah. He is the House of Representative member representing Gwer West and Gwer East Federal Constituency. And it's been a wonderful time here on the conversation. I'll see you again next time from the nation's capital, Abuja. I am Annabelle Oji. God bless Nigeria.